The book we will discuss is The Name Jar by Yang Suk Choi, and it is appropriate for a teacher to read in third grade and up. It's a story about a young girl named Eunhae who comes from Korea with her family and is starting at a new school in America. Her experience on the bus on her first day of school left Eunhae feeling uncomfortable about her name. She worried kids would mispronounce and taunt her like they did on the bus, so she introduced herself as Nameless, and it sparked an interest among the entire class. For the sake of fitting in, Eunhae decides she wants to find an American name for which she can be called at school, even though her mother tells her it's good to be different. The next day, she arrives at school to find a glass jar filled with pieces of paper, each with a different name written on it. Her classmates were gathering names to give Eunhae ideas of what to call herself. Eunhae felt appreciative of their efforts and told them a little about her name engraved on a wooden block stamp, a parting gift from her grandmother. As the jar filled with names she liked, Eunhae found it harder to find a name she'd like to be called. Her classmates told her why they picked those names for her, and another argued that no one gets to choose their name at birth. It left Eunhae and her classmates thoughtful. Later, upon entering her local Korean grocery, Eunhae ran into one of her classmates, Joey. The grocer, Mr. Kim, greeted Eunhae, and Joey heard her name for the first time. He was curious, so she helped him pronounce her name, and he said it so well it made her smile. When she returned to class, she saw that the name jar was missing from her desk, but Eunhae was ready to introduce herself to the class. She wrote her name in Korean and English on the board. She explained that Korean names mean something, and hers meant Grace. She helped the class pronounce her name correctly, and soon everyone was calling her Eunhae. Later that day, Joey came to her house to return her jar. He had taken it to encourage Eunhae to keep her own name. She was surprised to discover that Joey was at the Korean grocery because he wanted Mr. Kim to create a wooden block stamp with a Korean nickname for him, Chinku, which means friend.
After the teacher reads the book out loud to the class, the teacher will then hand out a classroom activity for the students. First, the teacher will hand out the class a reading response worksheet. In the directions, students will answer questions about the story and themselves. For example, some of the questions include, have you ever felt like Eunhae, wanting to fit in? How did Eunhae's feelings change throughout the story? Why are names an important part of who we are? How can we make others feel welcome and included? List names for yourself or Eunhae to put in the name jar. This worksheet is important because it will help students engage deeply with the text by encouraging them to think critically about the story and its themes. This process improves comprehension and retention of the material. In addition, when students relate to the story to their own experience, it builds personal connections and empathy. Then, right after students complete this worksheet, the teacher will hand out another worksheet called the Name Exploration Research. For this worksheet and activity, the directions include that each student will research its origin and meaning of its own name, and they will share it with the class. As you can see in the second worksheet, students will have a guideline of questions in which they can research on their own or answer on their own. For example, some of the questions include question number 1, research the origin of your name and what it means. Next, students will also research where does your name come from? And then in addition, in question 3, students will answer what's something interesting about your name? And the last question, do you think your name fits you? And after students research and write down their response, they will be ready to share it with the whole entire class. Now, this worksheet is important because it will encourage them to think critically about how names shape our perceptions and the importance of respecting cultural differences. This activity not only improves comprehension, but it also gives students cultural awareness.
We found this book to be a great tool for expanding the students' curiosities and their backgrounds. It can help them to think critically about students who are new to their school and their country. In many ways, students can relate to how Unhei feels throughout the book, and they can learn how to treat students from diverse cultures and make them feel welcome. This was presented by Maria Roque and Brenda Marrero for Cultural Foundations of Education.